Over the years, I've had many interviews with my former protege and now my almost master, Ryan Holiday, who is absolutely a brilliant writer and philosopher in his own right. And the following is a compilation of all of our greatest moments together and our best back and forth moments, so I hope you enjoy it. You want young people to resist the times. You can make yourself stronger than I ever could have been if you develop discipline, if you work against all of the addictions, all of the sugar rushes, all the dopamine fixes that people are surrounding you with. If you cut short your time on Instagram, if you force yourself to learn a foreign language, if you get your children to play the piano, etc., they're going to be the biggest weirdo in their neighborhood. People are going to wonder what's wrong with that. But they are going to be the masters of the future. One of the most important life skills that anybody can develop is focus and concentration. I know when I try and figure out an idea for a book that I'm writing, and I give it an hour, and then I distract and I go away, I lose something. But if I dig for 4 or 5 hours for 10 days into this one problem, like a madman, obsessed with it, I get somewhere. I get some truth to it, And Steve Jobs, the person that we venerate, he was the master of that. Unfortunately, the person who ironically created the iPhone that's driving us all crazy, but he would close his door, leave me alone for 24 hours, I'm going to think this through. You don't realize the power that you have with your brain when you focus on something simple for enough time. It's like a drill boring into a piece of wood. You got to keep on boring and boring and boring until you get all the way through.
That connects to the thing that you and I made together, which is the Amor Fati coin.
Yes.
Which is the idea that it's also a Nietzsche phrase of sort of loving everything that happens to you, not resenting it, not fighting against it, not carrying around a grudge or a burden, but sort of embracing it and finding the good in it.
Yeah.
Where does that fit in with our human nature?
It doesn't fit in because it's not natural to us. Our natural frame, our natural starting position is when something bad happens, why me? To feel sort of a grievance, to feel that things aren't fair, to feel that other people aren't giving you what you want or what you deserve. We start from a position of feeling kind of sorry for ourselves.
Right.
We deserve more than what we're getting. And so a lot of what I'm talking about in this book is overcoming some of these natural elements in human nature and turning them around and using them for another purpose, another way. And Amor Fati is very powerful in that you train yourself to accept everything that happens. It's sort of a banality to say that things happen for a reason, but there's some truth to it. For Nietzsche, it was, this is life. Life involves pain. Life involves adversity. You're going to die one day and it's not going to be pleasant. Your friends and family members, they're going to die one day and it's not going to be pleasant. You're going to have failure in life. People are going to hurt you. But that is life. That's what it is. So to resist that, to be angry about that, means to not love life itself. My philosophy has always been you have to make ideas your own. Mm-hmm. You have to take what somebody teaches and you have to put it into your own experience. It can't just be these dead words that you kind of digest that have no relevance to your daily experience. You have to take them and they have to come to life within you, within your own experience. So you read a passage and it's not maybe what I'm really going through right now, but you kind of maybe recall some experiences in the past that might be relevant. And then the second day you come upon something that is maybe a little bit closer. And then as you go through it more and more and more, that kind of soaks in and you see more and more access points to your daily experience. And then it can kind of become something that you internalize. Success early on is very, very dangerous. And I can say for me, I had nothing but failure until I was 38. You know, my parents were starting to get really worried about their son. I had 50 different jobs. I had never worked more than 11 months at one job. So I knew failure, man. I knew what it's like to work in the worst, most boring offices with all the worst politicking going on. So I could never take it for granted. I could never rest on my laurels and go, wow, I'm successful. It's not a drug. You know, I knew how hard it was to get there, and I knew each time I write a book, it could fail. You know, even at this point, I still think my books are going to fail. It's terrible to wait till you're 38. It's better to do it when you're 24, but it's also a blessing in a way. Amor Fati. You have to change your concept of pleasure. People only have the sense of pleasure, particularly now, that it has to be immediate, that they have to get quick gratification, they need quick hits. But I'm trying to say, to take those 3 years and to write a book like Ryan does, gives you a much deeper thrill, a much more important sense of pleasure, what I would call fulfillment.
Yes.
Than just having that empty, I'm suddenly the CEO of a company and I'm famous and I'm on Instagram. It's so empty, it doesn't lead anything. It's just going to make you more depressed in the end. But the sense that you've actually built something yourself leads to the deepest pleasure that a human can have. I'm sorry to say that the sense of accomplishment of creating something from nothing, from building something, is to me the highest pleasure that a human can have, because we are animals that are born to make things. The key to everything is actually being strategic with yourself and looking at yourself and being honest with yourself. So if you figure out what your life's task is, if you figure out I was meant to start a business or to write a book or whatever, and it really connects to you, and you have a great love and excitement about it, then when people are being political and they're trying to distract you or they're giving you bad advice, you have the energy to move past it. But if you're filled with doubts and insecurities, if you go, oh, I kind of want to write a book, but maybe I want to start my own restaurant, or maybe I want to write poetry, or maybe I want to be a rock star, it's never going to add up to anything, right? And then when people come up with their bad ideas, or they're political, or they're envious, you'll fall for it. So you have to have a real good, solid sense of who you are, what makes you different, and what you love. The number one principle is to stop thinking of yourself. When you find yourself in a moment where you want influence, when you want to persuade something, whether it's your boss, your child, your spouse, your first reaction is my needs, what I want, who I am. If you can train yourself, and it takes time, to stop that and to think of them and to put yourself in their position and to think of their psychology and of how they think about themselves, you've already come an incredibly long way towards having the ability to persuade them.
You're not going to be effective in your actions in the world if it doesn't come from within, if there isn't some kind of inner spirit guiding you. If it's just something you read in a book by Ryan Holiday or Robert Greene and you're applying it, but it doesn't have something in your heart or in your spirit, you're going to botch it. It's not going to be real. It's not going to be effective.
You're working really, really hard on something. You're creating all this information, and in your brain, all these neural pathways are connecting, and that's unconsciously. But consciously, nothing is happening, and you're getting frustrated. You've almost learned too much. You've almost thought too deeply into it, and you're kind of blocked. And then you step away from it for a day or something, and you let go, and all of those connections that are happening unconsciously now reach the conscious mind, and you become aware of the perfect idea that had been there the whole time, but you were blocking it by being too intense and too focused on one way of doing it, right? Frustration is a good sign. Frustration is a sign that you're going to be turning the corner at some point. If you give up, then that's the worst thing that can happen to you. I think of Leonardo da Vinci, who had a quote at the end of his life saying, after you've worked really hard during the day, you've toiled at something, you go to sleep and you have this great feeling like you accomplished something. But when you die, do you have that same feeling? Like, I did something, I accomplished something, now I can die in peace. And I think the worst thing is in life would be to reach the age of 60, 65 and go, God, I could have been so much more. I could have created something. I could have done what I said I was going to do. I could have written that book, but I didn't. To me, I tell anybody, if you're in your 20s, don't ever have that feeling. And it'll come quicker than you imagine. Realize that you want to reach that end with a sense of, I did what I felt I could do when I was a child. I had these dreams and I reached them. conflict is inherent in the human condition. So your path through life is never going to be easy. There's always going to be resistance. There's always going to be people who oppose you. When I wrote the war book, the other metaphor was the samurai warrior. That was a major theme in it. And Musashi talks about the stance of the warrior. And it's the stance that matters. It's how you meet the adversary, how you position yourself, how you're calm, how you position the sword, and how you're ready for the attack. The attack might not come, or the opponent might just give up and walk away, or there may be somebody who come from behind, but you're ready, you're prepared, you're in the proper stance. So I always think of it kind of in those terms. Are you prepared? So I don't want people to be paranoid. I don't want them to go around thinking everybody's evil and they're about to attack me. I want you to be in life to have this kind of composure, this stance like a warrior. You're prepared for the worst. You're not expecting the worst, but you're prepared for it if it happens. And if some kind of crap comes your way, you know how to fight, you know how to defend yourself, and you know how to get out of bad situations. You can be too focused, you don't allow something else into your life, that you're kind of heading down this one funnel. And sometimes, I remember Paul Graham was telling me this, sometimes like somebody from the outside sees the solution. You're so focused on something that you're not able to pull back and see other perspectives. You're not able to enjoy yourself, to relax sometimes. I'm a big believer in putting in productive downtime in your life. I know that sounds like a contradiction in terms, but there are things that I waste my time on, and I'm very proud that I do waste my time on, right? Like certain sports websites. What do I get from that? I get nothing.
Sure.
But I take my brain off of this thing, and it kind of relaxes me, and I find it very helpful. If I was continually thinking about these problems, I would have had a heart attack by now. What I want to train you, the reader, to look at is to not look at what they say or their appearance, but to look at their actions and the patterns of their behavior. So for instance, I talk about Howard Hughes in chapter 4 as somebody who's got a very weak character, who was a horrific businessman, and people were lured in by his image of this sort of maverick aviator, kind of great Hollywood person, etc. But if you looked at the patterns of his behavior, you would have seen that he was actually quite toxic. So stop looking at what people say about themselves and look at their actions.